Hey there. Good morning, everybody. Welcome here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I'm the host of the show. So I've come on here a little bit early, which is unusual for me. I tend to be more of a late person than an on-time person, and I've got crap stuck all over the desk here. How does these things happen? Anyways, we don't need any of that, so I'm going to move it so I can make room for these CDs. Actually, I think maybe I'll add them all. So I originally had planned to do this video as a discussion on a topic plus my 4 Boston CDs that I have, but I decided to pass on the Boston one. I think I'll do that as a separate episode at another time. But this one, good morning. This one is going to be about those bands that are legacy bands or iconic bands, the ones that are well known. They have a great deal of following. They're iconic. What's the other word that they like to use? They have a platform for selling. I'm trying to think of the word now. It's eluding me, like so many things do these days because I'm half asleep. Brand name. That's what I'm thinking. So they have a brand name. And so you wonder, as I have over the last 4 or 5 years, what will these bands do once the members of the band are too old or they pass away and there's nobody left in the band to keep the band going? What will happen then? I've been always curious. Now, some of the bands have retired. Bands like The Who announced retirement. I believe them. I believe they will not tour anymore, and there will be nothing else. There may be an album that comes out at some point, but I have my doubts even about that. But some of these other bands, they understand, as many people with brand names understand, that if you can keep it going and you can make money off of it, it's a source of income. Nobody understands this better than Kiss, that's for sure. They understand this as good as anybody out there, and I have little doubt about what their future holds for them. But we'll do these in the sequence that I have stacked here. So we'll talk first about AC/DC. So AC/DC actually, over the last year or two, have kind of reformed a lot of their what I would call classic members, bringing back Phil Rudd and Cliff Williams, and also adding Brian Johnson back to the mix as well. So you've got 4 of the kind of Back in Black guys back in here. The only one missing now really is Malcolm, and they've replaced him with Steve. So what does this mean? They're still, to me, they're still relatively young, I guess. I wouldn't have thought 70 or late 60s was relatively young, but perhaps it is. They might have a few more years left in them before they have to start considering about what happens when these 4 guys are gone. Now, Cliff Williams left a while ago, and Phil Rudd was kicked out of the band for obvious reasons, but they brought them both back in. Obviously, there's not enough money, and they need more, right? So lots of money can be made here by continuing, right? So what happens to AC/DC, say, 10 years from now? Are they done? Once Angus is gone, does that mean that it's over? No more AC/DC? AC/DC fans would like to tell you absolutely he will not continue. Once he's gone, the band should be dissolved. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on that. That's why perhaps Steve has been brought in there. And there's other members that will bring their kids in. Maybe it'll continue as AC/DC with band members, maybe be like a legacy band that kind of goes forward to keep the children well fed as well. I don't know. I've wondered about that particular one. The next one up, I'm not sure how this is going to go. The Rolling Stones. So you still have basically two of the originals here, Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, and for the most part, probably you would consider Ronnie Wood too. He came about a decade after they started, but he's been there for 50 years. That's pretty long in a band. So once Keith and Mick are gone, Ronnie's a little bit younger than them, but I wouldn't think he's too much younger than them. What happens if Ronnie goes too? Does that mean the Rolling Stones are finished? Are they finished if Mick Jagger leaves? Some people would say, yep, once Mick hangs it up, he's done. But maybe not. I don't know. This one, though, I have a tendency to think that they haven't really put in any kind of replacements. Like nobody young has been brought in there to try and continue the legacy and keep the dynasty going, or the brand name alive. So maybe they will hang it up once the guys who are the main guys actually hang it up, which I don't see happening as long as they're still alive. I can see them touring at 90. Won't be an issue. The next band has already taken that next leap. This is Foreigner. So Foreigner, there are no original members left in Foreigner. All the guys who were in the band initially, and even the guys on this particular album, are all gone now. Yes, it's still controlled by the last guy. So you've got on this album, this was the beginning of the change with the band because they got rid of a couple guys, Mike McDonald and the other guy's name eludes me, but they're both out of there. But you still got on this one, you still got Mick Jones, Lou Gramm, Dennis Elliott, Rick Wills, but none of those guys are in the band anymore. But Mick Jones still controls the band. So what will he do? Well, Mick Jones likes to make money, so he may keep it going as long as he can get people to fill the spots. And he's shown that he's willing to do that because the band out there touring as Foreigner has no original or even classic members left. Even now, is it Hannah? I can't think of his name. The vocalist they've had for the past 2 decades. I haven't followed them since probably this album, actually. I've got a few albums after this, but I didn't really follow them since this one. So the guy who's been their vocalist for the past 2 decades has now hung it up too. So, and they've said nothing about finishing off, that they're done, that they won't be doing any more, that they're finished, that's the end of it. My guess is he'll replace him with another vocalist and they'll continue on touring all over the place, playing Foreigner stuff. And Mick Jones, I'm sure he makes a ton of money off of this too. And there's enough people out there who have heard of Foreigner, know who they are, know the hits, have heard the hits, and have no idea that there's nobody left in the band who created those hits. I'm sure of that. And they're not going to come out and say, oh, there's no original members here, but we still want to play Foreigner. No, they're just going to keep playing as long as they can play. And some people won't like this. Other people will think, it's still Foreigner, still playing Foreigner music. Still sounds like Foreigner. I'm going to still go. That's it. Foreigner. Next band, Aerosmith. I always kind of wondered about this band. So pretty much all of the originals are still here, I think. There's nobody. It's a bit of an unusual situation. You still have all the original members, but they're old. Don't get me wrong. These guys are as old as dirt. So I have this feeling that at some point this band's just going to hang it up and that'll be the end of it. I don't know why. There's no reason for me to think that will be the case, but I have this feeling they're going to. Not that I'm going to be right. I could be completely wrong with these guys. There's lots of stuff to indicate that I will be wrong with them, but I just get a feeling because it's all the original members still that they are going to just do that. They're just going to hang it up, and that'll be the end of it. They'll all go out at the same time. I don't know when that'll be. They haven't played for a while, I don't think. I haven't seen anything on them, anyways. Next up is this band. This is the quintessential money-making machine here. This is their debut album. The 4 original members here on the cover with their original makeup, which the makeup evolved over time to a certain point and has stayed in at least a certain way for probably close to 50 years now. But they kicked out first Peter and then Ace left, and those two, they tried to get different characters in there, with Eric Carr being the fox and Vinnie Vincent being the Ank's warrior. That didn't really fly, so they decided to go back. Hey, you know what? We'll just go without makeup. And they did that for a long time period, and then they realized there was money to be made by going back. So they went back, brought back Ace and Peter, went back, reformed Kiss, and for 4 or 5 years were playing as a foursome again before Peter left. I think Peter left actually after a couple of years, 3 years maybe. And then Ace just eventually drifted away too. And so you were left with Gene and Peter again, but they did something they didn't do the first time, which is they kept both the spaceman outfit and the cat outfit. Now, up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I hadn't realized that they were actually paying a fee to Ace Frehley for his makeup for the spaceman outfit to use. I did not know that. And then he said it one time himself. So I assume the same thing is in application for Peter Criss. They make money off of their stuff, and money is the big thing with Kiss. Trust me, it's the huge thing with them. I like their music. I've always liked their music. I like the act that they put on in the 70s, but I make no bones about it. It's about the money. It has always been about the money with these guys. They are money machines. They sell everything under the sun and stick a Kiss label on it. You could even get Kiss air guitar strings with bag. You get a plastic bag with the Kiss logo on it, and inside is the air strings that you can put on your Kiss air guitar and play. Yes, this is a true thing. I'm not making it up. So, yeah. So both Gene and Paul packed it in. What? How long ago was it? A month? Was it last year? I think last year was their final year, right? Or was it the year before? I can't remember now. They packed it in, but Paul said it himself that, I don't think I'll be the last person to wear this makeup. So that tells me that him and Gene have already got in mind that they will put somebody in to replace him and Paul's characters. Now I'm wondering why they're waiting. So the only thing that comes to mind that for them to be waiting to put these avatars in play, because this band, unlike any other band out there, can put 4 different guys on the stage dressed as them, and a lot of people would not even know it's not the originals. They wouldn't even know. And I'm just wondering what they're waiting on to do this. I think it's because they want to put 4 new guys in there. So that means that both Singer and Thayer will have to go by the wayside, because they don't want to change them again. They like to start right at the beginning with 4 brand new guys who could play the roles, all 4 of the roles, the way it was originally intended, with all that extra energy and stage performance and everything. And I could see that happening. So maybe they're waiting a few years to launch it, but I'm sure it's coming. I have no doubt about that. They will not let this brand name die. There's too much money involved. and both Gene and Paul are going to make a ton of money if they redo this, because they'll just put it out there as the new Kiss, or they'll put it out there as Kiss Reforms, or whatever they want to call it. And they'll bring it out there and they'll go on tour. These guys will go on tour for 200 shows a year, and people will line up to throw their money at these guys because they're playing Kiss music and they look like Kiss and they are under the Kiss logo. I mean, there's lots of bands out there that are Kiss cover bands playing all of the same stuff with the same makeup and everything, but they're not really Kiss. So people, for whatever reason, they'll think of them as being cover bands, but the guys who are going to replace these guys are not going to be cover bands. So people will fool themselves. I wouldn't go see it, but I know there's lots of people who would. I know people who went to see Kiss 10, 15 years ago and said they were as great as ever. And I said, even without Ace and Peter? And they said, what do you mean? Ace and Peter were there. They were up on stage. I said, no, that's just two guys in their outfits. One guy says, no, that guy looks like Ace Frehley. Yeah, but it isn't. And they didn't want to believe it. They did not want to believe me that that guy was Tommy Thayer and not Ace Frehley. That's how little people follow this. They only remember what they remember, and they don't know that it isn't the same guys. Even Ace has come out and said this before he died. He was saying it all the time. People go to see them and think that that's me up on stage, but it isn't. And the last one of the ones that I had put on the show was this one, Black Sabbath. So Black Sabbath recently lost Ozzy Osbourne. And about 10 or 15 years ago, they lost Ronnie James Dio as well. So the only incarnation I could see from them, the only thing that could happen is they might do something with Tony Martin, because he played significant amount of albums with them. They might do something. I don't know what Tony Martin's status is. I don't really know much about Tony Martin. I'll be honest. I don't own any of those Sabbath albums. I eventually will, but I haven't got around to them yet. So I keep thinking that's a crack, but it's just a stick on the picture. Yeah, so I'm not sure what they will do. I mean, they are all pushing 80. They may just pack it in. I don't think they would do the Avatar thing like Kiss. That's a bit of an extreme thing. They might bring in a new vocalist and tour again, because Bill still kind of wants to keep playing. I get that impression from him. He missed out on quite a bit of it in the 80s and 90s because of his alcoholism. So he may feel like he's ready to keep going. I don't know how Geezer and Tony feel about it, though, but they could replace him. They could bring back Tony Martin and do more stuff with him, or they could just bring in another vocalist. They could. I don't know that they will, though. I'm a bit ambiguous about it. I'm not sure how they'll go. I have a feeling that they will. They did that one last big concert in Birmingham with Ozzy because they wanted to honor their memory, and then also they wanted Ozzy to have a chance to go out and do what he wanted to do, and I'm sure they knew he was dying. So that might have been it, and if that's the case, I applaud them for it. So I picked out another 4 bands that I didn't initially include on the label under in the information section. What about this band, Journey? Now, I don't know a lot about Journey. I know they changed vocalist a fairly lengthy time ago and have another guy, a Filipino guy, playing for them and singing for them. My guess is that once Neil Scott is gone, that will be the end of this band. That's my guess. They don't really get along with each other a lot. There's a lot of infighting. But their music still resonates with a lot of people. Like, they still have songs that people want to hear. Some of the stuff that were hits back in the early 90s and are now hits again. Like, it's just amazing. I'm not a big fan of these guys. They're not a band I really follow, so I'm not going to make too many comments about them. I just wonder what their future holds. Now, this is a band I thought a lot about, Styx. So a couple decades ago, Styx replaced Dennis DeYoung with um, Lawrence Gowan. And I think it was a pretty, as good of a transition as you can get. Does Lawrence Gowan sound like Dennis DeYoung? Not really. He has the high voice, though, so he doesn't sound out of place in a Styx band. He's also very flamboyant and has a huge stage presence, not too much unlike Dennis DeYoung. So he kind of fits in a lot of those areas. Does he do it as well as Dennis? I would like to say no, because there are a few Dennis DeYoungs out there, maybe none. But this guy is as good as it comes, and he is a presence of his own stature. This band is definitely run by Tommy Shaw now. Tommy Shaw, I mean, the band's gone without Dennis now for 2.5 decades. I don't know that it could do that without Tommy Shaw anymore. It wouldn't. It's already begun to change a bit now when they've added new people to the band in the last year or so, changing out their bass player, bringing back in Chuck Panazzo, bringing in a new guitar player. He's actually not really all that new. He's been writing for them for a while now and been involved with the music for a while. So he's just taken on a full status. And actually, if you look at their new album, he plays and sings more. Well, he wrote and sings more songs on there than anybody else but Tommy. The only thing with him I have a problem with is that his voice isn't really Styx-like. He's singing more than Lawrence now. And JY didn't even sing at all on the album, so that makes me think he's probably going to be gone soon. And it looks like Styx will continue after JY's gone. They will replace him with somebody. They already have, really. You've got 3 guitarists now, so you don't need to. And I think that's maybe the move they're going to make. But I think Tommy will stay with the band for a while. Now, what happens once Tommy's gone? That would only leave Chuck, and I don't think Chuck will be there longer than Tommy. So I think Tommy would be the last guy, and he's not really an original member. He came on in their 5th album, I believe. Is it 5th? No, actually, it was their 6th album. So he was 6 albums in before he came on, and he missed a fair bit of the stuff in the 90s too. So he's what I would call a classic member, but not really a original member. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. If Tommy goes, will the band continue with the current members in there? I don't really know. Or will there be a fight in the courts over the name? If Dennis still happens to be around, maybe he might want to come back in there and assert his authority. I don't think he will last as long as Tommy. Tommy's a fair bit younger than him. But it's hard to say what will happen. I would think they would hang it up once Tommy's gone, but it depends on how well they're doing too. If they're doing well, they may continue with just entirely different band. But I just can't picture. I can't picture Styx without Dennis DeYoung, JY, or Dennis or Tommy in the band. I don't think it would be Styx anymore myself. Now the next band has a bit of a different problem. So they haven't actually done anything since the 80s. A few concerts here and there. We're talking about Triumph. So the original 3 members, of course, Gil Moore, Mike Levine, and Rick Emmett. This was one of the great rock bands of the early 1980s, in my opinion. Dominant band, one of my favorite bands at that time. But and then Rick left at the end of the 80s. And they went on with Phil X for a while, and I think they may have added a couple of other people at different times too. And then they just tanked it. That was the end of it. And they just never did anything again. They did a few one-off concerts here and there, but never have come back. But now they see bands like Rush making a comeback, going to do a tour, and they thought, you know what, let's jump on the wagon here. But I don't think the three original members really want to all come back and tour again together. I don't get that impression at all. I don't think Mike Levine is actually capable of that. And I don't know what Gil Moore and Rick Emmett's status is with each other, but I don't get this impression that they are just best of friends either. So I'm wondering whether they're just going to tour, occasionally showing up. I've heard that this is going to be the case where um, Rick and Gil will show up on occasion and play. Now I'm hearing that maybe the both of them are going to be there, but I'm guessing that they may be there, do a couple songs together, and then leave and let other people take over. It's not really Triumph, though, is it? But there's money to be made, right? And the last band, another bit of a different story here. Bachman Turner Overdrive. So the original Bachman Turner Overdrive, which featured the three Bachman brothers and Turner on the first couple of albums, and then they kicked out Tim because he had problems, replaced him with Blair Thornton. So I consider the lineup with Robbie, Randy, and Blair Thornton and C.F. Turner as the classic lineup because they produced the best albums, and they produced 3 albums in a row, I believe. Four Wheel Drive, Not Fragile, and Head On. I don't know that the album that came after Head On, Freeways, I think it's called. I don't think that album, I think maybe that album had the 4 of them too. That album wasn't as good as the other 3 albums, but they were strong albums, those first 3 that I said. This is a classic band. So this band, of course, was started by Randy Bachman. So once he left the band, you would think it would probably come to an end, but it didn't. Blair and Robin and CF stayed together, and then CF left, and they replaced him with the guy from April Wine, whose name is eluding me at the moment. He came in and took over bass, and CF moved to guitar. Actually, that happened before CF left, and then CF left, and the band kind of dissolved. They were touring as a band still as BTO. They weren't allowed to use the Bachman Turner Overdrive label, but they could use BTO, and they toured together and played with a Randy Murray, I believe his name was. And then they kind of fizzled out, and then Randy and CF came back, decided they wanted to restart the band, but they lost a court thing with Robin, who had the rights to the band. And then they did their own thing, and then eventually they came back and they took on the BTO label again. And Robin didn't play. They got former Guess Who drummer Gary Peterson to come in and fill. And I'm not sure who they got for the guitar player. Oh, they brought Tim Bachman back. That's what happened. And they didn't restore Blair Thornton, which upset Robin. But, now with Robin's death, Tim's gone as well. And C.F. Turner does not want to be involved, nor I guess he's a little bit long in the tooth. But Randy has restarted the band and brought in his son and some other people, and they're playing BTO and Guess Who, but calling himself BTO. So I don't know what's going on at all, really. It's massive confusion. But how long is that going to go on? What if Randy passes away? Does that mean that Dull Bachman will take over the band and continue with it as BTO? You tell me. I don't know. So anyways, that's my kind of discussion on a bunch of bands that are legacy bands and where their future might be once they're done with the original members or the classic members. Will they continue ad infinitum? The only one I can say for certain is that Kiss will continue. I'm 100% sure of that. they will continue with no original members, and they will put makeup on 4 new guys, and those 4 guys will go out and tour as Kiss, playing all the Kiss classics. Whether they make new albums or not, I'm not sure. I don't know. But they will definitely keep that ball rolling because there's too much money to be lost. And Gene and Paul, they do not like to lose money. Anyways, other than that, I'm just speculating. None of this, of course, is written in stone. Maybe none of it will come to pass. If I'm lucky and get one of them right, I consider that just fortunate, not really any insight on my own part other than just speculating. I'm speculating more as a fan than I am as an actuality. There's lots of people out there who love these bands. Many of them they love. I like a lot of them myself. I don't know how I feel about seeing bands continue without any of the original members. I mean, yes, who's not really a band for this show because I'm doing that for the Into the Progverse, is a band with one guitar player that isn't even an original. He's basically one of the classic members, but there's nobody else from the originals. They're all gone. They've either passed away or they've moved on to other projects. I think it would hold a lot more water if they brought back at least John Anderson. If you had John and Steve, they were the main 2 kind of writers for the band. They're the 2 that put a lot of their classic, well-known songs together. Maybe you could, and I've heard through the grapevine, and I've heard it through people that they're actually civil with each other now. They're talking, so, maybe John Davison has shown an interest in moving on to something else. And maybe Steve says, maybe this is a time to bring John back in. Maybe he's learned. But I don't know if John wants to come back anymore. He's doing very well with his new projects and his band of geeks and stuff like that. And Rick isn't well. He's not. And I don't know how Steve and Rick's relationship is. I get the impression it's not really all that great. So maybe Rick is out, but there are keyboardists abundant that can come in there and play. They could keep Jeff Downs in the band. Most people wouldn't have a problem with that. You could have Steve, John, and Jeff Downs in the band, and then maybe keep the other 2 guys as well, because they, with Chris gone and Alan gone, it doesn't really matter who you put there. You're not going to get Bill Bruford back, so whoever you put there is going to have to fit in, right? But if John came back, I think it would give the band a lot more legitimacy. And I don't know that, yes, if Steve was to leave, I'm not sure that they could continue without an original. I don't know. But anyways, it's just speculation. This kind of stuff is all over the place now because there are very few legacy bands out there who haven't lost at least one or many of the members. Leonard Skinner's another example of a band. No original members left, but still playing together. And maybe it'll just go on forever. Anyways, I thought this was an interesting topic. It's something that's been on my mind for a while. I thought I wanted to talk about it. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion, or at least my interpretation of what I see is going on. Do you feel the same way, or does it even matter to you? Anyways, I want to thank you for showing up today. Please have yourself a good day and good evening, and goodbye here from the Prog Monster.